Philemon Yong. I am from West Africa originally, from the country of Cameroon. Came to the USA in 1987 and 88 to get married, and basically all my education was done here in the US. In 2003, my family and I returned to Cameroon to teach at a large seminary there, and I was teaching in a New Testament department. I was also the dean of the school. So I had involvement with a lot of students who came to seminary to sense God's calling in their lives and whether they should be in ministry or not. We did that for 7 years, and I returned to the US, joined TLI, and at the moment I work in multiple countries as we seek to bring theological education to pastors. In a very strange way, it was cross-cultural for me, because having lived and studied in the US for 13 years, you go back to a context that has radically changed from what you loved. And also, having studied here, there is the saying that when you go to school, you graduate with a DNA of that school in your blood. So I was really influenced by Western education and what I studied here. So going back was a bit challenging because, one, I had learned to think as an American, as a Westerner. Two, I had learned to be abstract in my teaching, and that cultural context was not abstract in their learning skills. And three, I had learned to, this is kind of funny, but I had learned to do things on time. When there's a meeting at 10, I show up at 10. In that context, if there's a meeting at 10, the meeting starts when everyone arrives, which could be 1 or 2. So there was a struggle there, and there was for my wife also. But spiritually and theologically in that context, I would say the biggest challenge for me was when I left Cameroon, I was theologically a child. Because the history of missions in that context did not lay a firm foundation for the church to grow on. So when I left, I was theologically a child. I grew in my theology here in the US. So when I went back with what I have studied and learned, it was in a certain way rejected as Western. But the benefit of the students knowing that I'm from that context was being able to connect those theological concepts to their cultural situations. For example, 1 Timothy 3 says, an elder should be the husband of one wife. What does that mean? Because in that context, many people in the church have more than one wife, or have inherited by law the wife of their brother who died because they are supposed to. So how does that impact now leadership in the local church? I mean, those were situations where we had to bring theology and cultural practices into one context and decide, okay, how do we now apply that text in this particular context? Spiritually, and that part is very challenging because spirituality is mentioned, it's measured by your external demonstration of it. Okay? You are not allowed to skip church even if you're sick. Okay? If you're at church, you are supposed to dance a lot and sing a lot. If there's any church meeting you're supposed to go to, if you are to change churches, the church you are leaving will write a recommendation to the other church. And that whole form is, this is how much he gave in the last year. This is how many Lord's Suppers he attended. This is how many Christian meetings he came to. So they measure spirituality by outward demonstrations of it. So that was a bit hard for me because there was not a sense of fellowship with God. 1 John says, those who are in the light should walk in the light. Fellowship with God, loving one another as evidence of God's love for us, and walking in the truth. Things that are more internal were not put forward as important, but things that were external were put forward as very important. So spiritually, we kind of struggle there. So for my kids, it was mainly what they got at home, because when they went to church, they were just like we can do all of this. So when I was there, I came up with something occurred to me. I think that we are called to be a church, but I felt like I was in a context that was doing church or performing church. I have no problem with corporate disciplines, spiritual disciplines. I have no problem with that. But if that becomes more a legalistic thing, where an unbeliever can fulfill all those things and be considered a believer, that is where I have a problem with. The whole concept of spiritual discipline I learned here. The Old Testament is very relevant there because it's full of laws and things that you should do. The New Testament and the New Covenant is kind of confusing to them because grace seems to take away from you the performance. So I personally, as one who led his family more from a New Covenant perspective, more from a grace perspective, I think I kind of created a problem because they were thinking maybe we're not Christian enough because we were not emphasizing the works part of it.